Welcome to the Babo. Babo stands for Burrow at Brook Overlook.
And Lois, when did you come here and first decide to build this Babo, and what brought you here?
I guess I always wanted, as long as I can remember, for years and years, I wanted to build an underground house. I think going underground is the most reasonable thing for mammals to do in this climate. Most of the other mammals do go into burrows or hibernate or do something anyway in the ground, a lot of them. So I've always had this urge to do that, and I finally got the opportunity when my friend Carl said I could pick a spot anywhere on his vast acreage, and he would help me build an underground house. And that we started building in 1999.
And what were the first things you did?
First thing I did is walk up around, well, I came and stayed for a summer in a Girl Scout tent down below here, looking for the perfect underground site, which I found almost immediately on this right here. It's a south-facing hill, so the sun hits it most of the time. And as you can see, I've got glass across the front. Those are reused glass doors. I was here with my grandson, actually, and we did a little ceremony where we ate some partridge berries and did some magic and sayings, which I can't remember, and decided this was the site, and that we were sighted, so it was the site.
What was it about the site?
I think there was this big tree. In fact, it's still there. It's right there. It's a beech tree, I believe, and as you can see, it's almost touching the building. And that tree just had a kind of aura about it, and we sat under it, and we decided that's why. I mean, that was really the only reasoning, nothing very scientific.
And how long have you been here?
I moved in 2000, so except for a few years lately when I wasn't here due to health, I've been here pretty much ever since then.
Do you want to take us on a tour?
Sure. Come on in. This is the Babo.
And what are we looking at?
Well, you're looking around at the inside walls. If you notice, there's all windows over on this side. This is the west side. This is the only side of the Babo that is not underground, besides the south. And I did that so I would get some ventilation. I'm really glad I did. I got really good windows. That was probably the major thing that I bought new. Otherwise, I tried to use recycled, and I did use a lot of local lumber. But I put windows on the west side, and like I said, it's great. I get a nice draft from that. The rest of the walls are all stone and concrete. Some of them have been sided with wood, so you don't see it as much. But if you go back to my wine cellar here, which is all homemade wines that we do, you can see the rocks in the concrete, and above the rock you can see a cob sculpture that I did when I first moved in here. That was to enclose the corners, because this was very irregular shaped and it was impossible to use like 45-degree angles and stuff to close in that corner. So I just did a cob sculpture in there, and this has sawdust. This actually lifts up, and it has sawdust in it. You can see right there. This whole thing is full of sawdust, which doubles as insulation on the corner from the outside, and also cover material for the humanure, which I will talk about later. And then this wall here has been sided with wood, but it's basically the rock and concrete, same thing. And that is a 18-inch thick wall that I laid up using stone that was here on the site when Carl came up and scooped out a place to put the Babo. There was a lot of this shale rock, which I washed, mixed concrete, and then laid it up in movable forms to make the walls. And the walls go up about this high, all the way around. In the back, they're completely underground. And as you move around towards the front, you can see that they're not. They come up above ground level. And then, of course, the front is higher yet. But this allows the south sun to come in. And in the winter, as the sun goes lower in the sky, it'll shine all the way to the very back of this little room. In the summer, when it's hotter, there's a little overhang which stops the high sun from coming in at all. So you have cool in the summer and warm in the winter. It never freezes in here in the winter. It doesn't go below 40 is the lowest I've ever seen it, and that's in the front by the windows. So I can keep my wine up here all year round. I could have jars of things, canned goods, whatever.
And it's nice and toasty in here today.
Yeah, I have a fire going. I kind of overdid it. It doesn't take much of the fire to heat it up in here. And of course the sun's out now, so it's getting warmer. And it's very insulated. The part that's not underground is insulated with raw wool and sawdust. So, and the same thing with the ceiling. There's tons of raw wool in the ceiling.
And how do you do the cooking over here?
Well, I have in the winter, I use the top of that wood stove a lot. But I also have this fancy dancy little apartment-sized propane stove, which is my concession to modern conveniences. And it is really handy. I go through one of these little tanks. I have this little short tank about this high over here of propane, which should be outside, I admit. But anyway, it takes me about 9 months to use one tank full of that. And that's cooking, mostly I use it in the summer.
Here's the house from the front. Lois is going to take us around to see the roof. Those rocks must have been heavy to carry.
You can see here that where the roof line goes down and goes to ground level. And this area has all been gravel, filled in with gravel, and then insulated, and then covered over.
Who carried those rocks?
Carl. I have had things planted on it. I had potatoes on it. I've had various things, but I've had to re-roof it three times. The original roof leaked, so I had covered it with hay, which had rotted down. I had to pull that all off, and then I put tin on it, covered it again with straw, hay, waited for that to rot down, and then that leaked also, so I had to pull it off again, and then the last time I used a huge rubber pool liner, which you can see it's actually showing. And I did have hay on it, but it all rotted away. That's the thing with stuff, it rots down to practically nothing. So that's one of the jobs that has to be done like ASAP, is recover this with hay, straw, sawdust, something for insulation, and also to create a growing medium so you can actually grow all kinds of crops up on here. This is the only sun space I have. The trees and the canopy around, especially when the leaves are on, don't really give me a lot of sun to grow things. But on the roof, I do have sun. And I have done potatoes. I've had strawberries up here. Flowers. I've had different flower things. I haven't ever really had a lot because I've never had enough soil up here. But basically, this is what keeps the babbo warm, too, in the winter, of course. And I have a solar array there, you can see. That's 2 solar panels that are at the right angle to catch the sun most of the year. And then there, the wires run down to a battery, which is on the front of the babbo. and then inside through a charge controller to a couple outlets. I have a light on a switch, and I have an outlet to recharge my phone, and if I wanted to like have music or something like that, I could do that from the solar array. And that's one deep cell battery. That's all I have. Plenty for me. I've always got enough juice, all I can need here. And behind me is a blueberry bush, which is doing pretty good, really. The bear usually comes and gets all the blueberries, but I have had a pretty good crop. That thing right there is a hazelnut, and I have actually gotten hazelnuts from that. I've gotten hazelnuts that I've sprouted to grow more hazelnuts from that. And then the rest of it is just, you know, mostly hard maple up here, but beautiful woods. Some cherry, some ash. This is a birch that I left here because I liked it too, and I need to cut it down. It's shorter. I like to take the twigs and make birch tea. It's delicious. It's like tastes like birch beer, kind of, that sweet taste.
Would you do anything differently if you were just starting out?
Yes. I would not use cement between the rocks, which I did. I got that from a book by Scott and Helen Nearing that they wrote back in the probably 50s about building with stone. You can use any size stone you want. You just use forms, and then you mix concrete, and you lay the stone in, and you put concrete around it, lay another stone, and go on up, and then you can use any size stone, and you have this strong, sturdy wall. Well, it's great, except cement is hygroscopic. It sucks moisture in, for one thing, but also it's very energy wasteful to produce it, and and I think it's a limited resource. So if I had to do it again, I would try it with cob, which is like clay, some kind of fiber, and sand, a mixture that they make. Adobe bricks is basically how they do that. I would try cob between the rocks, and I don't know how that would work. This spot turned out to be a perfectly dry, wonderfully dry spot. No springs, no water coming in from anywhere, and as you can tell, I'm kind of almost at the top, right barely under the top of the hill. So I don't get a lot of runoff here, and I've never had any trouble with water, which is a big deal for underground building. As people know from water in their basement or cellar, that's a big issue. I just lucked out on picking a really, really dry area. But I think I'd lose the concrete. I would try it with more natural materials next time. That's probably the main thing I would change. Whole food.
Wow.
Well, let me think. Yeah, there's some vinegar, apple cider vinegar, honey dressing on this.
Wow, this looks delicious.
But and it's not all my local stuff, of course, but yeah. And Robin can get hers. So it has arugula.
Delicious.
That is good. I love that. Arugula, red cabbage, a little tiny bit of cooked squash I see in there. I forgot about that. Pak choy from the market, which was really good.
Is there pear in here? Is that pear?
Pear. No, I think it's probably bok choy.
Oh, bok choy maybe.